Paris in the 17th century felt raw, crowded, and perpetually unsettled. Splendor and strain existed side by side, often on the same street. Narrow lanes churned with mud after rain, thick with smoke from hearth fires and the lingering sweetness of perfume meant to mask the smell of refuse. Markets thundered with voices from dawn to dusk, while church bells cut through the noise, calling the faithful and warning the anxious that unrest was never far away. Carriages rattled past beggars and finely dressed courtiers alike, each moving through the same cramped space, each living in a very different world. The Seine ran through it all like a living artery, carrying grain, firewood, and merchandise, but also carrying filth and disease. Barges pressed against the banks, unloading their cargo to men whose boots never fully dried. Behind shuttered windows, cardinals planned strategy and influence, while poets and thinkers whispered dangerous ideas about power and justice. Paris was brilliant, volatile, and hungry, a city breathing faster than it could rest, poised on the edge of transformation without knowing exactly what form it would take. On the Ile de la Cité, Paris showed its most working face. The low, marshy ground was crowded with timber yards and warehouses, their rough beams stacked high beside muddy quays. This was a place of labor and river grit, where shouted orders mixed with the creak of ropes and the slap of wood against water. Nothing here was decorative. Everything existed to keep the city fed, heated, and alive. At the city's ceremonial gates, triumph rose directly out of dust and noise. Great arches towered above carts and traders, their carved victories silently watching over the daily struggle below. These monuments spoke of conquest and order, even as everyday life rushed past beneath them, indifferent and uncontained. At the Hôtel de Ville, Paris displayed its stern civic face. The Renaissance facade stood like a promise of control and reason, carved in stone. Yet beneath it, the city's pulse beat hard and uncertain. Messengers hurried across cobblestones carrying sealed decrees, while disputes murmured inside crowded halls where merchants, magistrates, and petitioners argued over rights, taxes, and favors. Outside, vendors jostled beside agitators, their voices echoing as the Seine's cold wind swept the square. Here, authority felt ceremonial, impressive, and yet always fragile. On the Pont Neuf, Paris gathered itself in all its unruly glory. The wide stone bridge never slept. Vendors shouted their prices, jugglers drew laughing crowds, barbers worked in the open air, and thieves slipped through the press of bodies with practiced ease. Horses clattered past nobles dressed in bright silks, while pamphlets, gossip, and rumors passed from hand to hand as quickly as coins. Beneath the arches, ferrymen called out for passengers, and the smell of the river rose thick and sour. This was the city's great crossroads, loud and watchful, a place where every breath felt charged with opportunity and deceit. At the Palais Royal, Paris wore a more polished mask. Behind dignified arcades, courtiers traded secrets in low voices, and influence moved with a glance or a carefully chosen word. The gardens offered a rare hush, with gravel paths crunching softly underfoot, clipped trees standing in neat order, and fountains murmuring as if nothing beyond the walls could intrude. It was elegance layered carefully over tension, beauty designed to calm a city that refused to be calm. The Luxembourg Palace stood apart from the clamor, its grandeur announcing the presence of royal authority. From its windows, ordered gardens stretched outward, where statues and straight paths softened the air and disciplined the eye. Noble families strolled among trimmed hedges, their measured steps hidden ambition and calculation. Even here, peace was only a surface impression, a stillness beneath which courtly schemes quietly unfolded.
In open squares shaped by symmetry, Paris displayed its victories in stone. Merchants, soldiers, and curious onlookers drifted across wide spaces meant to inspire confidence and control. Statues rose above them, celebrating royal power and military success, their presence intended to quiet the city's restless spirit. These spaces suggested certainty, even as the surrounding streets reminded everyone how fragile order could be. Cathedrals loomed over the dense neighborhoods like immovable witnesses. Darkened stone caught the shifting river light. Bells shuddered through the streets, and incense drifted beneath vaulted shadows where worshippers murmured prayers filled with hope and fear. Faith offered comfort, but it also reinforced hierarchy, reminding Parisians of their place in a world shaped by God and king alike. On the western edge, the Tuileries Gardens opened into long, ordered rows of trees and gravel paths, offering a rare sweep of calm. Parisians came here to breathe more freely, to step briefly outside the crush of walls and alleyways. Beyond the gardens, the city thinned, and the river breeze carried dust, conversation, and courtly gossip toward open ground. Along the river's rougher stretches, barges crowded the banks with grain and timber. Crews shouted over the rumble of carts heading toward the markets, while old gates stood weathered and watchful. These thresholds marked where Paris's elegant facades met the harder labor that sustained them, a constant reminder that beauty rested on exhaustion. Parisian life pressed tightly together. Families stacked themselves into tall, leaning houses that crowded narrow streets, each floor holding another household, another story. The city swelled beyond 500,000 souls. Artisans, clerks, servants, and merchants moved through a daily crush of sound and labor. Privacy was rare. The city's pulse echoed through stairwells, courtyards, and shared walls, impossible to escape. Poverty was never hidden. The poor crowded church steps and bridge corners, wrapped in rags against the damp wind. Beggars stretched out their hands for coins or crusts of bread, children clinging beside them with hollow eyes. Markets and palaces rose nearby, yet hunger remained constant, woven into everyday life as tightly as stone and mortar. Winters bit harder than they do now. The Seine often froze solid, transforming into an unlikely stage for pleasure. Parisians stepped on the ice with skates, sleds, and makeshift stalls. For a brief season, the frozen river became a winter fair, bright with laughter and movement, a fragile escape from cold homes and crowded rooms. Inside the city, small comforts mattered deeply. A pâtissier worked beside warm ovens, filling the air with sugar and butter. Tarts, biscuits, and glazed fruits drew nobles and laborers alike to his door, each pausing for a moment of sweetness. These delicate pleasures offered relief in a city defined by noise, labor, and want. In covered galleries, booksellers laid out fresh pamphlets and forbidden verses, their words passing quietly from hand to hand. Nearby, haberdashers displayed ribbons and fine cloth that shimmered under filtered light. Gossip buzzed, bargains were struck, and ambition rustled through the corridor. Parisian life compressed into a single crowded passage. Power at the top remained tense. Louis XIII and Cardinal Richelieu ruled through uneasy cooperation, holding the realm together by strategy and resolve. Later, Cardinal Mazarin governed with calm intelligence, steering France through war and rebellion, while shaping the young Louis XIV. That boy remembered the unrest that once shook Paris, and he resolved never to be challenged by it again. As king, Louis XIV reshaped the city with deliberate grandeur. Old walls were cleared to make way for broad boulevards. New squares and triumphal arches carved royal authority into the urban fabric. Artists, Architects and engineers were summoned to impose classical order on medieval chaos. Even as Versailles became the heart of court life, Paris remained the stage on which royal power was displayed, disciplined, illuminated, and unmistakable. By the late 17th century, gardens were reshaped into sweeping geometry, hedges clipped into precision, paths drawn straight and purposeful. Calm was designed into the landscape, meant to reflect a city finally brought to heel. Paris emerged transformed, still alive with contradiction, but now bearing the unmistakable imprint of a king who intended it to mirror his own radiance.